Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, frequent listeners and viewers of our podcast know that we talk with leaders from both within and outside the RSPA member community about their leadership journeys and what they've learned along the way. This is one of those ventures outside our industry with a leader who's achieved great success in an area that I'm passionate about, college basketball. So I've learned firsthand there are many lessons from the sports world that can be applied to business leadership as well. Our guest today is Easton Bazzoli, who just finished his second year as the head men's basketball coach at Gannon University, where I played for way back in the day from 1988 to 1992 in my hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania. Now, Coach Bazzoli has put together one of the best two-season starts to a coaching career in NCAA history, 61 wins, only 10 losses, 2 conference championships in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, 2 NCAA tournament appearances, and he capped that off in April this year with Gannon winning the 2026 Division II Men's Basketball National Championship. And you are darn right, I drove 11 hours one way from here in Raleigh, North Carolina to Indianapolis to watch it in person. Coach Easton Bazzoli, congratulations and welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Jim. I'm glad to be here.
It is so great to talk with you. And so we're going to dive in and talk about your championship a little bit later in our discussion. My wife and daughter, my friends can't get me to stop talking about Gannon winning the national championship. But I want to first talk about some challenges that you faced at Gannon and how you navigated those. So you arrived in 2023 as the top assistant to new head coach Jordan Fee. And the prior season, Gannon had by far and away its worst season in program history. Only 3 wins and 23 losses. My junior year, we were 17-13, and fans were berserk, saying everything was falling down. You can imagine what it was like with only 3 wins. But you and Coach Fee turned over almost the entire roster. You finished with the best record in school history at 32-3 your first year. You won the region, advanced to Division II Elite 8. And I'm just curious, as one of the key leaders who just took over an underperforming organization, like what were the first actions you took besides recruiting better players? Like what did you have to do foundationally to give everyone the opportunity to build on?
Yeah, I mean, what I thought Coach Fee led with and just became contagious is he just changed the expectation within the direct people involved, our players and the staff. I thought there was a quick foundation laid from our very first team meeting of the expectation is different than whatever you think it is, and it's higher than whatever you think it is. And I think that just matters. There was a clear vision that he laid for what day-to-day operations have to look like. For what we're trying to accomplish, and we really didn't give that what are we trying to accomplish, but we just did. We weren't going to put a floor and we weren't going to put a ceiling on it, and just lay an expectation of this is what winners look like, and that's how we're going to attack each day. But I don't know that there was anything bigger than that. I just thought that right away we had 5 guys returning from the year before on that team. We had 9 new players that had never been here before. So, I mean, really it was 14 new guys that were new to us, but there was an expectation. I think even some of the guys that signed and believed in this thing and thought we could win right away, I thought there was still an expectation that maybe they were coming in as well of, maybe we can win 10 games. Maybe we can win 15 games. Maybe we can win 20 games, and I just thought that Coach Fee is unique in the way that he set that expectation right away, that we weren't going to put any sort of floor or ceiling on it. But we do have we are going to lay that, hey, this is how we approach every single day. And we're going to approach it as if we're going to be a really successful winning program right away.
Yeah, interesting. And Coach Fee is definitely a true believer, like exuded very much through him. And one of your predecessors, Jerry Slocum, I remember they lost to Findlay, a very close game. Findlay was number 2 in the country, and people were congratulating him. And he said, there are no moral victories at Gannon University, right? Like we have this expectation that we're going to beat everybody who we play. I'm curious, how much film, if any, did you watch of that 3-23 team? Because you had some guys, like you said, a handful who did come over with you. Did you get to watch much of that team on film to see what you were walking into to some degree?
Sure. Yeah. We watched we watched all the guys that wanted to come back pretty substantially, and then I wasn't around for it. Coach Fee got to sit in on a couple open gyms. I mean, honestly, there were guys that didn't want to come back that showed up to this thing as well, but it was good for him to be able to just see them in person and see how they carry themselves and things like that. So he got a little bit more than in-person view, and then I was able to just watch the guys that did want to come back and try and be a part of this thing. And the guys that kind of fit the character piece that we were looking for and fit the work ethic. It was, if you want to come back, this is what it's going to look like, all of that. But it wasn't for anything other than just seeing, all right, what does this guy like to do? What's his strengths and weaknesses that we can see? It was, it definitely didn't have anything to do with team or philosophy. It was just get a little bit of a grasp, just like we do. I mean, it was like treating him like any other recruit. We're going to watch film and try and evaluate.
Got it. Okay. It was like watching them playing for the AAU team, but it happened to be the same arena that you had before. So, so Coach, because I've followed Gannon basketball closely now for over 40 years, I've heard, a lot of what you've been talking about. And you say the key to your program's success isn't just recruiting tall guys or shooters or athletes. And you just mentioned it a second ago. You focus on high character guys. I'm curious, how are you able to judge that, right? Because the business leaders listening to this, they have to judge that before they bring somebody into their organization. How do you assess before you work with somebody on a day-to-day basis if they're high character or not?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes in conversations. I don't think that you can judge anybody, any book by its cover. But if you have enough conversations, it's just like opening that book and you start to figure out what this thing's really about and figure out what this person's really about. So, we're trying to do that. We're trying to have conversations with the individual. We're trying to have conversations with the people that are directly involved with them. And doing our best, we are far from perfect, but I do believe that we have great humans in our program. And I think that, if anything, we're able to decipher that in those phone calls, those Zoom calls, the on-campus visit, the interactions when we take them out to dinner, the all of that stuff. We're just trying to, use all of that as part of our evaluation process, to see if they fit the kind of people that we want to have in our program.
And is there do you have something that's almost like a by the book, like here's the questions that we're going to ask them, here's our plan, or is it basically we're going to see them play and talk to them, we're going to bring them on campus, we're going to have dinner, like it's just in those environments and see how they react?
Yes, so both for sure. We have a list of questions, and not even essentially a list of questions that are written down, but a list of questions that are in our minds that we're going to ask every single guy, and then every single one of those players, coaches, and the people that are involved with them, that are pretty routine. And then the rest is really organic. See where those questions lead us, and see how see what kind of conversation that leads to. Again, some guys are really talkative, some guys are a little bit more quiet. I'm not against either. It's more in how do they handle themselves in those situations. And a lot of times you can find in one conversation, does a kid have maturity, and does he know how to have a conversation with an adult? And I just think that stuff matters. I'm not saying they got to be the most professional person in the world and they got to, be wearing a suit or anything, but like they've got to be able to have a conversation with an adult and be able to show some maturity. But also, I like it when a guy knows how to smile and laugh, and if a guy knows how to do that, we're usually going to be able to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, and from watching your team the last few years very closely, and one of my friends actually came to the national championship game with me, and I kind of got him addicted to Gannon, watching them online. There's very little on your team preening or showboating or getting in people's faces or things of that nature. I'm not saying they're walking around like robots or anything like that, but it seems like on the spectrum of what you see in regular, in games today, it's very much on the lower level. I'm curious if that's something that you screened for. Is that something that you kind of weed out, or you just why? How is that? It seems like it's an uncommon thing that we see.
Yeah, good question. We don't screen for it per se, right? Like, the reality is a lot of the guys in the recruiting process, they do all that stuff. But they're also not playing a style at that time, that if you're doing that stuff, it immediately affects what you're trying to do next. So we look for that. It doesn't mean if a guy is just doing it all the time. If it affects the next play for him, that bothers us for sure. But the reality, if you play traditional style of basketball, most of it is, whether you like it or not, most of it actually doesn't affect the next play that much, So like, I wouldn't be totally against it if I felt like, we were going to jog back on defense and then get set and then play. Like, go ahead, stick your hand up because you made a three. Like, I want our guys to be excited for each other. Like, I don't want us to be robotic. Like, I want us to have emotion in when we play, but I want us to be able to use that in the right situations and at the right times. I think if you're playing a competitive sport and you don't have emotion, I'm like wondering where your pulse is. So I want us to have that. But I think there's a right time and place for it. Make an opponent call a timeout before you express it. Allow your teammates to do all that stuff on the bench. Like our guy that just made a three, he may not be doing it, but I'm almost upset if not every single guy on our bench isn't doing it for him. So I think that there's that we definitely want to screen for that to an extent, but a little bit more on, all right, is it affecting the next winning play? And then when they get here, just coming to that understanding of, all right, because of how we're going to decide to play this game, if you take a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds to do that, it's going to affect exactly what we're trying to accomplish next. So we just don't have time to do it in this style of play. And that's kind of how we express it.
Interesting. Yeah, I never even quite thought about it that way, right? You can't spend time, giving your gyrations because you got to pick up full court there. And your bench, folks want to watch on YouTube, the national championship game is there. Your bench is definitely enthusiastic up every play, and they do that all season long. So, all right, so that was the first challenge, turning around the program. I want to talk about your next challenge was that the head coach that we mentioned earlier, Jordan Fee, left for Florida Atlantic after the season, and you were named Gannon's head coach. So my stats are right. You're only 29, right? You had no head coaching experience. And now you have to lead a program that just won 91% of its games, won its conference, made a deep NCAA run. I'm curious, like, what were your initial feelings? Was it jubilation? Was it, I feel the weight of the program on my shoulders, or was it a mix of both? I'm curious, what was your reaction when you were tapped on the shoulder?
For sure, a mix of both, obviously, you got to be excited about it because there's you're taking over a program that has had so much history of success. There is, this is a place that you can win at. We're in the middle of a multi-million-dollar renovation on the facility, so you got like, we're heading in the right direction in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of things that it's just natural. Like, you got to be excited about it. You got to be excited about it when you don't have a job either. Like, my boss just left. I don't have the option of going with him. I'm jobless if I don't get this job. So I think that helps. Again, I was fortunate. Like Coach Fee is one of my closest friends in the world, and what he did for me as an assistant, I thought was really unique. Where he allowed me to be involved in so many things, to where I knew our president well when the time came. I already knew our athletic director really well. I knew our administration, so I think that mattered, and it helped make the transition a little bit more simple. Obviously, you win 32 games. There's a lot of people that want to keep the things going the same way after the way it was. But then there was for sure stress, because I would have told you for probably since I was about 26, like, okay, I think I could take over a program. You got a lot of, I not even saying it in an arrogant way, but like, I've had great mentors and coaches that I've worked for that have thrown me in the fire and put me in situations to be as ready as you can be. I'd be lying if I said I didn't envision my first time going, okay, I'm going to go and I'm take over a program that's a good program, but they just haven't been winning a bunch of games. And, if we win 16 that first year, as I'm figuring things out, it's like, well, great. That's 8 more than the year before, so you think that's how it's going to be. And then you're like, oh man, we lost the first 2 games of my career. And I'm sitting there going, well, we just lost the same amount of games we did all year until the Elite 8 last year. So what am I doing? So I think there was definitely a level of both. I felt prepared in a lot of ways, but for sure felt, I think again, I don't know if I would have had a pulse if I didn't feel a level of weight and probably good stress of the kind of program I was given the opportunity to take over.
Sure. No, thank you for that. And so you alluded to, right, you didn't have decades of coaching experience to rely on. So I'm curious, like, what did you rely on to guide the program? Like, what actions did you take, like, at that point going forward, or had you taken previously that gave you, you mentioned you thought you were ready at 26, right, even earlier. What gave you that genuine confidence you could lead a program to more success?
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I didn't have a decade of experience at that
Right.
time. Uh, I think the first things that come to mind are the people that I've been able to play for and work for right away. I felt like because of my past bosses and then my college and high school coach, I felt prepared. I felt like I knew how to run practice. There was no adjustment to my experience because I'd been put in those situations as an assistant. Hey, you got the practice plan today. Go ahead, draw it up, and I'm in there and I'm coaching, but you're leading it. This is your practice today. I had sides of the ball that were given specifically to me to have complete ownership over, and so I think that I was just fortunate to work for those people that gave me responsibility, and probably responsibility before I really deserved it or earned it, and was able to maybe make some mistakes at a young age and then learn from it, and then make another mistake and learn from it. So the majority of basketball stuff is where I felt the most prepared, because it just didn't feel an adjustment to, like, practice didn't feel too different to me. Games felt a little bit different, but not overly different. I think it was more of the other stuff that was the biggest adjustments, the off the floor things of, hey, this is my final decision on a specific. I don't get to just give advice and walk away. Now I'm responsible to make final decisions. But that's where most of my confidence in preparation, I just think, came from being fortunate to play for and work for really, really good people early in my career.
So thank you for that. Is that a lesson for veteran leaders who are looking to build up the folks underneath them, right? You talked about giving them, you got responsibilities, right? You had things that you could make mistakes. And I'm sure they didn't just let you say, go ahead, do it on your own, but they gave you responsibility, whether it's offensively, defensively, running a practice. Like a lot of coaches and a lot of business leaders don't do that, right? They have to be involved in everything or leading everything in every area. Is that, I guess, advice that you have from being on the other side of it that really helped develop you? Is that what you would say to veteran leaders? Like give
Absolutely.
folks a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I'm still trying to preach to myself. I don't think I was great at that my first year. I think I was better at it this past year. I'm fortunate with an associate head coach here, and Mike Chalice, that's like, he's uniquely good and really, really special, and is a huge role in the amount of things that he runs in our program, and that helps. But I mean, one of the big things that, we went into the first games of my career, and we were just all kind of just there coaching the same thing, looking for the same things, no defined roles, no defined what we're trying to look for specifically. And I thought it cost us. And fortunately, I was able to learn from that, and then give more responsibility and clear responsibility. So I think it's one of the things that, especially I'm sure that veteran leaders feel it, but I think young leaders feel it too, where it's like, I just feel like I've got to control everything. And I just don't think that's the case. The best leaders that I've worked for didn't feel that way. And my hope is that we're sitting here and there is the confidence in promoting from within and doing those type of things because we've prepared them for it, and put them in situations to at least have the opportunity to prove that they are prepared for those extra opportunities and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's extremely important.
And how overt were those mentors, those head coaches for you in terms of, I'm giving this responsibility because I'm preparing you to be in this seat, or, as a head coach at some point, and you can tell me none of my business, but have you and Coach Chalice had that conversation as well? Like, you're not just here to serve me, like I'm doing the higher level stuff, you do the lower level stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm building you up. Like, that's part of the plan here. And that's part of what you need somebody to sign up for. How overt is that from a leadership and mentorship standpoint?
I think it depends on the leader. I don't think I realized it in the moment in my first job, but I felt like there were a lot of things at my first job by the time I was wrapping up my time there that I was the head coach of. And Uh, Again, I don't think I was. In some ways, I was told, hey, your job is to recruit really good players and
Mm-hmm.
present really good players to me, and your job is to run the defense. And it may not have been the maybe the specific wording that you're using, but I definitely feel it now, and I think it was similar in working for Coach Fee. And I view our program right now like he Mike Chalice has the associate head title for a reason. I believe that we have two head coaches here. I mean, the guy he's a head coach, and he just so happens to be working with me right now. I think he's really good, and there are things that he does in our program that I don't even think of anymore because it's just him. He takes it over and he runs it. And if that's true always, if I'm fortunate enough for him to be around for a really long time, then great. The next guy, it might be a little bit different where I got to take some reins back and some things. But then my hope is that that's always the case, is that we're sitting here in a position where we've got guys that feel that and feel like they are put in positions to take advantage of opportunities and really feel ownership over a specific role or job.
Got it. Thank you for that. I'll just interject a personal Gannon story here, and it kind of ties in with the leadership lesson. The coach also has to really communicate to the assistants to make sure everybody's on the same page. Because my first practice, my senior year, we had a brand new coach who was an older guy, local high school legend, and he came in and he was like, "No, we have to do it this way." And it was like, I had to say off to the side, "That's not how we do it." Like Coach Duquette's gonna, wring you by your throat if you teach that again, because they weren't on the same page that way. So that's about the veteran coaches. What advice do you have for fellow young leaders, right? Whether it's business or basketball, what actions do you recommend for young leaders so they can have the biggest impact on their current situation and then also advance their career as well?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just remove all ego. I don't think that we can be good leaders if we have ego and we're sitting there thinking that we are just right about everything. I am I am very aware of my flaws. I'm very aware of the things that I'm not good at, and I'm constantly seeking to find what else I'm not good at, I mean, as much as anything, so that I can tell my assistant coaches to pick me up in these areas. Like I know that there are times that I can be forgetful, so I'm telling my new assistant the other day, like, hey, I know I've got this on my plate. It's on my calendar. If for some reason it's getting close and you're like, hey, I'm not sure, just shoot me a text and remind me, hey, coach, remember that you got this. Like, I just know I need that stuff sometimes. I know that there are things that are really, really easy for me to see on a basketball floor. And then there's just things that I don't see quite as well. And I think I've hired well with guys that see those things really well. And I can really lean on them to help guide us in those areas. So I just think, I think ego is a killer. So avoid it.
So there's being egoless, but then there's also that candid communication that you have, right? Hey, here are the areas that I have a shortcoming in. I need you to help me, right? You're not relying on your assistants to be like mind readers, right? It sounds like you have a very candid back and forth with them.
Yeah, I try to, for sure.
Excellent. Well, and I hope from a forgetful standpoint, I'll name the head coach. Tom Chapman got in an auto accident my freshman year. The assistant had to run the team out of the game at Edinburgh, and one of our top players off the bench, he just forgot to put him in the second half. And I was helping him probably carry equipment up to the room that you're in right now. And he confessed to me, like, I just forgot. Like, I can't believe I forgot about Mike Crawford, being on the bench there. So it happens. That's for sure. So before we get back to some questions with Coach Bazzoli, we want to thank these channel-focused companies who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our gold sponsors are Blue Star, CoCard, Epson, Global Payments, and Scansor. So, Coach, you alluded to it earlier. You run a version of what is known in basketball as the system, right? So because this is a business podcast, not a basketball podcast, I'm going to resist the urge to ask you about your defensive rotations. Our audience wouldn't care as much about that. But I'll explain to our audience that the system, like at a high level, it's aggressive, up-tempo basketball, relentless pressure, right? You alluded to it, full court pressing, shooting quickly, like not just holding on to the ball. And you're also utilizing like 9, 10, 11 or more players. So what I want to ask you about related to the system is, so as a new leader, how did you determine when to rely on what are considered like system best practices versus having the confidence to just go with you believe in. And a lot of listeners in our audience now, they're second or third generation business leaders. So the easy default for them is to do what dad or mom or, the previous president did, or just what playing it by the book. Can you talk about deciding when to try your own strategies as a new leader versus sticking with what's been done before, what the book says to do?
Oh, I think that's a tough question. Like my cop out answer is I have such a belief in what we do. I really believed in it as an assistant. So it's, I think we've all got to, I don't think that we can do something that we don't really believe in. And I think that in those decisions, as we sit there and go, like, maybe I don't believe a ton in what we're doing and I'm not the primary decision maker. I think it's my job in those situations to voice my opinion. And then if we don't move in that direction, my job is to figure out how to believe in it, because we all got to be moving in the same direction. So I think, man, when I got the job, it's like I already had so much belief in it, but I also knew I'm not trying to be Jordan Fee. I'm not trying to be anybody that does what we do or a version of it. So, I think that there are the most important thing in the things that maybe we do a little bit differently than other quote unquote system teams is other things that I think are consistent in mentality and philosophy with the system in general, but are tailored to maybe a little bit more of my personality or that I really believe in those ways. So I'm not trying to be other people. I think that we can look the exact same way in a lot of things, but I'm not trying to teach it in the same way because I'm not that person. I'm trying to teach it the way that I know how to teach it. So, but yeah, I think that when you get those opportunities, it's like if it was successful and you don't believe in it, why don't you believe in it? And if it's just a couple specific philosophies, I think the most important thing is that or practices, I should say. I think the most important thing then is that if you're going to implement something new that maybe you believe in more, doing it this way than another way, go into it with no ego, but align the philosophies with the general. I just don't think you want to have branches of what you're trying to accomplish that then all of a sudden it's like, this is the core beliefs and philosophies of what we want to do. But this, I really believe if we did it with this mindset, that's just the opposite. I don't think that those things align. You can do it this way as long as it's in alignment in the core philosophies of how you want to function.
Got it. So the business analogy, I don't know if you've read any of Jim Collins' stuff, but he's the author of Good to Great. But he has something where he talks about a flywheel, how one thing really drives another and drives another. And to your point, from a basketball standpoint, you might want to, hey, let's hold on to the ball. But you're like, that totally goes against the philosophy of constant pressure all the time. So is that part of what it is you're making the decision, you're constantly making sure it's aligning with your principles and your philosophies. And that's why it's so important to go into any leadership position where you have to have principles and philosophies as opposed to just whatever the leader wants to do. Is that, I guess, a real guide? I guess kind of keeps your ego in check and also, make sure that you and your coaches and your team are aligned. Is that part of it, having those principles?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that we can do what we do a bunch of different ways. But for us, I don't want to implement anything that would then be the opposite of, like you said, like for us, it's having that constant pressure. If we don't have constant pressure, if this is against constant pressure, then it's probably not what we want to do. Figure out a way to, if you really want to do that, you really believe in it, figure out a way to include the same constant pressure philosophy in it, or don't do it.
Got it. Thank you for that. And so let's talk about meshing those philosophies and strategies with the team, right? The players are responsible for the execution of all that. And so what I've heard from you and Coach Fee and other successful system coaches, you're very clear about the outcomes. We've talked about it already without even asking you to spell it out, right? Relentless pressure, always aggressive. And so if your players get that, the tactics really follow more naturally, right? And so is it correct to say that making the desired outcomes very, very clear to your team, preaching those as opposed to, controlling them like a remote, control game or a video game or something like that, does that really accelerate the implementation of strategies and tactics, right? That you're preaching the principles a lot so they can go and figure out on their own what aligns with those principles as opposed to you just preaching tactics.
Yeah, definitely. My preference is to be in a situation where we're saying, hey, again, I'm sure there's a million things in the business world that you could come up with these exact examples. The one I'll give is in basketball of we don't want the ball to be in bounds. We don't teach people how to keep the ball from getting in bounds. Different guys are going to do it different ways. They got to, but the desired outcome is don't let the ball in bounds. So, I think that, if we have two guys with completely different skill sets, completely different athleticism, completely different size, and we're trying to say, hey, this is how you do it. I think that it becomes a little bit more difficult. And then it takes maybe some of that responsibility and ownership that guy gets to take and use how he wants. When it's like, and as long as you're playing within the confines of the game, do it however you think you can best do it. And if that's not working, try it a different way. Yeah. But if it's working, I don't care if it looks the same as the other guy because it's working. So I think that's a great point. That's exactly how I prefer to do it.
Got it. So you're saying you might have a guy denying the inbounds on one side and he's like doing the traditional right opposite hand in, and somebody else could be open stance, but as long as the ball doesn't get in bounds, it doesn't matter. You're just focused on the outcome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can I ask how hard is that? Because a lot of leaders want to have things look, this is the way that I think is the way to do it. Or is it going back to what you said earlier about be egoless? If they're getting the outcome, roll with it. Is that essentially what it is as a leader?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a combination of both. I think we have a responsibility as leaders to set people up for success. So it's not like it just happens for everybody. It doesn't just happen where they figure it out. Sometimes we got to help guys figure it out, and we can point to some other people that we've seen, hey, this is how this really successful guy has done it. Mm-hmm. And I think that you can implement a lot of the things in his mentality to do it. And then, I mean, it's the same thing I do as a leader. I watch other leaders that I think do things really well and listen to their podcasts and try and call them and talk to them, and I go, man, you do this really, really well. How do you do it? So I think we should be looking at trying to do that the same way. But then also, I can't remember the exact example you just gave, but of we using it like a joystick. That's not how it's going to work in the biggest, best moments. You may have to start in that direction where you feel a little bit more control. But if you're well into this thing and you still feel like you need to have total control, I think it says as much about us as leaders as it does about the individual. And I think we want to be able to get to the point where we're guiding you and we're taking our hands off and allowing you to make those decisions and trusting that what we've done in practice, now when the moments come, you're prepared to do it without me holding your hand.
Yeah, teach them how to play. Don't tell them what to do, because if you're only telling them what to do and you're not talking, they're not going to know what to do. So, all right. And along those lines, so I heard you, I don't know if it was on another podcast or it might have been a post-game press conference. You talked about, you had a quote, you push your players through positivity instead of punishment. And I'm curious, what does that look like? Because I've seen a lot of coaches who do the opposite, right? There's no positivity. It's all punishment. What does it look like to push people through positivity, not punishment?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, again, we've got to probably play to our own strengths, even as leaders and things like that. I'm naturally an encourager, so it's just not difficult for me to be that way. So when I see someone do something good, it's just natural for me to encourage them. If I see someone do something poorly, but the effort to do it well was there, I'm just a natural encourager. Hey, man, it's just easy for me to go again. You're good. You're good. You're going to figure this out. Go again. Your effort is there. So I don't even necessarily believe that the negative reinforcement is a bad thing per se. It's probably, if you do just one or the other all the time, it's probably, I think there's probably a mix of both. I think we need to as leaders, when we hire or when we recruit, I think we need to hire and recruit people that will fit us. If someone, I think there are people out there that need to be screamed at all the time to be able to get things done the way they need to get things done. And I tell guys in the process before they make a decision to come in and play for me, if you need that, I'm not your guy. I'm not the guy that's going to be losing my mind in practice every day or screaming on the sideline. So if you need that, that's fine, man. Like I don't necessarily feel like that's a bad thing, but you and I won't mesh that well. Yeah. You won't become the player you want to become if you come and play for me. So I try and be upfront with that in that process. Because again, for me, it would just not be natural for me to be losing my mind all the time. It's natural for me to say good job. It's natural for me to probably be more of an emphasis on the effort in things than again, even in, like we just talked about outcomes. Well, like if the effort's there, I just believe, I'm probably naturally pretty optimistic. I believe the outcome that we want is going to happen at some point. So I don't need to lose it on that specific outcome.
Yeah. Interesting. I was going to say I played with some guys at Gannon who needed that, being pushed and screamed at in order to get going. I can point them out on the all-time roster if you want me to. But they needed that to get to practice sometimes, even let alone what they did at practice. So I also want to share with you. So my career at Gannon, when I was a walk-on for 4 years, I sat at the end of the bench. I did the radio for like 10 or 11 years or something like that. But when I wasn't doing that, I would always sit in a row right behind the opponent. So I could almost like listen right in on their huddle. And I can tell you, I'd say 90% of them fit into that punishment, negative. I mean, it was just nothing but clashing, like insulting. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh. Now there are very few who, do it the other way. And so I haven't sat behind your bench, but from what I can see, I'd say you're not a lunatic. Some of these other guys are lunatics. I'm not going to have you name names or guess anybody. So, it's obvious if you can see somebody ranting and raving, but in your huddles, is it more collegial and cooperative than it is just I'm the drill sergeant barking out orders? Like, is there a give and take with you and the players? It sounds like there is with the coaches, but is there between the coaches and the players?
It's a good question. I mean, it's probably my hope to that answer is yes. That's my hope. That's my belief in it. It'd probably be worthwhile for me to spend time with some of our players and ask them if they feel like what I believe is happening in their minds too.
Yeah.
Because my belief is that, and not to say I don't ever jump on guys in a huddle, I do. But I would say that the majority of what we're doing is pretty collaborative in those moments. I want them to feel a sense of responsibility and ownership when they take the floor. So if that's definitely the goal and the hope. Again, my belief is that it'd be worthwhile for me to spend time with some players and go, hey, how do you feel? Is what I think is happening actually happening in your minds too? But I would feel relatively confident that would be yes.
Got it. Thank you. Gary Manshell, who I don't know how much you've crossed paths with him, the head coach at Mercer University. And so I've crossed paths with him a whole bunch during my time in Erie. His players, like they were all very much on the same page. I just remember one huddle, this is against Gannon. He must have said 10 times, don't let the ball in the high post. Don't let the ball in the high post. 2 passes, the ball goes in the high post. He turns around. He's like, is anybody listening to me? So you've got to be able to have folks go back and forth, right? There's a communication of what you're saying and are they listening? So, and I want to talk about, so leaders want to be close with the people that they lead. You've just talked about that, right? They want this bond with them, but they also need to have hard conversations with them. So, if done wrong, those hard conversations can really damage the relationship. You talked about sometimes you have to get on guys. And I've heard you say in a lot of your, interviews, how much you love your guys, but you also have those hard conversations with them. So how do you balance, right, the love and the hard conversations?
Well, I don't think you do love people if you don't have hard conversations. I don't think that you genuinely love them. I think you care a lot more about yourself if you're only want to have the comfortable, soft conversations that don't lead to the things that you believe in. I just believe that it's like, it's like if your buddy's walking off a cliff and you don't want to tell him something he doesn't agree with. Like to me, those go hand in hand. Truth comes with love. I don't think if we're lying to people, if we're telling them things that they want to hear that is just not true, I don't think we love So to me, it's very easy. It doesn't make it doesn't make the conversation easy, because I am like everybody else for the most part. I feel like in that area where I don't like having uncomfortable conversations per se. But if I actually love these guys, then I better tell them the truth. I better put myself in those positions where I am going to tell them those things. And or I don't really mean it when I say that I love them. You know,
Yeah.
if we've got a guy that can't shoot the three and he loves shooting threes, and I just say, keep going, buddy, you're doing great. No, I don't really love him or his teammates for that matter. So, if we've got guys that aren't about other people before they're about themselves, and I'm just, to me, that's not love. So, you can't have one without the other in my mind.
Yeah, and again, it sounds like you've had all these conversations in advance, right, during the recruiting process. What type of person are you looking for? Somebody who you can have that candid relationship with, right? It's not that it suddenly springs upon them that you're going to have a candid conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that for me, I can look in scripture and look in Proverbs, and you can, there are the lies come from the enemy, and truth comes from your friends. And I think truth is where you see love.
Well said. A couple questions for you left. I do want to focus on the national championship. I'm just curious, like, what did it feel like to win a national championship, right? To work crazy hard, right, over such a long period of time, and then to like achieve the ultimate goal. What did that feel like?
In the moment, I don't know. In the moment, it was cool. Like, it's hard to have perspective in the moment, to be honest with you. It's like you're kind of there and you're enjoying it, and I loved watching our players celebrate. But I didn't have this like moment of euphoria in the moment. Like, it was cool. It was fun to be a part of. You feel a sense of accomplishment for sure, for all the work that goes into it. I felt such a sense of gratitude for the kind of people that we had in our program, and to be able to do it with, again, people that you genuinely love and you love being around every day. Like, I felt more of a sense of gratitude for those things than anything. I'd say at some point 2 months later, uh, for about a day, I was like, wow, that was crazy. You kind of get that perspective a little bit. And then for me, it was like, outside of that day, a couple months later, it was, what, right back to the process. And the process was every bit as fun as the moment. And because I think it's easy to then look back at the process and just be like, yeah, you don't get even the opportunity to accomplish this without that. And so, yeah, it was fun, but there wasn't like this. We weren't living on cloud nine for weeks.
Right, right. That's interesting. Like, there's almost a surreal element to it. I can just say, speaking personally, right, going to so many games, like, oh my gosh, I'm watching Gannon play, at an NBA arena. Like, that itself was really
Yeah.
strange. And on CBS, and seeing, all the Gannon logo around, and then to actually win it, it was just like I thought I was going to break down and sob like a baby because I wanted Gannon to win for so long. But I was like, well, this is really good. Like, it's better
Yeah.
than, it was just a strange
It's
feeling.
way
So
better than the other way. Don't get me wrong.
it's for sure.
It's way better than the other way.
It would have been a long, long drive home for me. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure for you as well. You put in even more time. So I know, Coach, how much your national championship, meant to the Erie community. The folks, who are listening to this don't know, but Gannon doesn't have exactly the youngest fan base in America. Lots of those folks have been going to the games, and like every game in Erie County since the 1960s and 70s. And so after the game, I was, spending time with a lot of them out in the concourse there. And the most common feedback I got was, man, I thought I was going to die without seeing Gannon win a national championship. Like, it was something super, super meaningful. So I guess, what does it mean for you? You just talked about how you, reacted and your team reacted to it. But when you deliver on something that, wasn't just important to you, but it impacted so many other people so positively, how did that feel as well, to like interact with people afterwards and how meaningful it was?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I thought it's something that we preach to our guys all the time. This matters to more than just us. This is something that a lot of people really care about. And then afterwards, our guys interacting with our families and fans and season ticket holders and all of that stuff. I thought that was really unique because the way they embraced our players and myself and everybody in the program was it was just obvious. You say all these things, you're telling these guys, man, and they feel that the whole time for sure. And then you see that, and then we get back on campus a couple of days later, and there's 1,000 people just waiting on us to get here. And I'm thinking, there might be 50 people, and then all of a sudden the one side of the stands is packed, and they want to sit and talk to everybody for an hour afterwards. So it was really cool to see that too, because our guys were so you could tell in the moment they were so grateful for each one of those people that showed up and have cared for so long.
Excellent. Wonderful. So, Coach, I can't thank you enough as somebody who I've been going to Gannon games, or following the team since the mid 80s. I know that's well before your time on the planet, but it was a dream as a young Gannon fan, to see them win the national championship. Between my freshman and sophomore year, we had a coaching change. Bob Duquette came in. He had been fired by Marquette. And then John Riley. I don't know if you've talked to
I know John Riley.
Yeah. And so Riles was his assistant. And so Riles, who coached me the year before, had me work in the office. Again, it might be the exact same office you're in right now, stuffing envelopes, so I could get to know Duquette. And so he actually said to me, like, what's your goal for the team? And I told him, win a national championship. Like, that's what I'm here for. I have nothing personally that I want in it. If you can do that with me on the team, great. If you think it's better with me off the team, like, I just want Gannon to win a national championship. And I just remember walking down the stairs and thinking, like, oh my gosh, I just gave him permission to cut me. Like, he's going to be like, I think we can win it without you. But to see it happen and to have it be without knuckleheads, it was just super meaningful. So I can't thank you enough again for spending time with us today, and again for all that you've done and really setting a leadership example for other folks. So I'll give you the last word before we close out, just in terms of anything you'd like to share with our audience to wrap things up.
Yeah, well, listen, I appreciate you having me. Like, this is awesome. I think you are a great example of why Gannon's such a special place. There's just people that have been a part of this program before that really care and care at a different level. They're just not just the guys that just maybe show up to a game here and there, but the people that are invested in our players and want things genuinely to be done the right way and to go well. And so I've been really fortunate to be able to work at a place like this, to be surrounded by people that are aligned in what we're trying to do. And I've had great staff and great players that are just overwhelmingly selfless, and that's been our ticket, and I'm grateful that I've been able to just be a part of it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you and congratulations again, Coach. So that does it for this episode of The Trusted Advisor. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. Before we go, big thanks again to Coach Easton Bazzoli of my alma mater, Gannon University, for sharing his wisdom with us today. Thanks also to RSPA Marketing Director Chris Arnold for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the retail technology ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.